All right, three, two, one. Here we go. Welcome back to my podcast. This is podcast four. It's Matt McCarthy coming to you from the laundry room in my house. Today, I'm going to talk about why I can't say what I want to say as a college professor. And I'm going to give you an example of that. But first, let me thank you all that have subscribed, and let me encourage all of you that are out there that aren't subscribers to go ahead and subscribe. It helps the podcast, it helps it spread. I'm hoping someday it'll be a national podcast. Why not have gigantic goals? Why do this if I'm just trying to get to a couple of people? So, let's talk about why I can't say what I want to say as a college professor. The first thing is I'm not tenured. I ain't going to be tenured. That ain't ever going to happen. Tenure means you can say pretty much whatever you want. That's it. And there's nothing anyone can do about it on the planet. And I'm not that person. In a future podcast, when I talk about what I think an American college should look like, tenure isn't a part of it. But that's for another episode. That's coming up pretty soon. The other thing I'd like you to do while I have you in the first part of the podcast is I want your questions. I want your comments. I want your questions badly. I don't ever want to be canceled. I would rather go, hey, let's talk instead. As a matter of fact, I'm dying to have people on this podcast instead of this stream of consciousness that I'm doing. So let me tell you how I almost got canceled a couple of years ago. So, as I've shown, and in the algorithm of podcasts, what you always want to do, from what I've read and seen, you always want to have a sponsor. And for me, that's going to be my book, How to Avoid Fucking Up in College. And this became an Amazon bestseller. And let me tell you how this book almost got me canceled. And no, it's not the title. The title has nothing to do about it. Let me give you a little history of how this happened. I wake up one day and literally decide to write a book. I'm going to write a book about college success. I'm going to write a book I think that's going to help people, help students, help parents. I'm going to do all those things. And so I told my wife, I think I'm going to write a book. And she goes, and I knew the reaction would be, that's a great idea. Hashtag good. That'll keep you busy. And she was right. So I start writing it, and I'm not going to put myself in great writer company. I don't think I am. God bless tools like Grammarly, ChatGPT that can help me with my grammar. So I use them extensively. So I end up writing about a third of the book, and I decide, you know what, I'm going to send this book to a friend of mine, someone who I consider a brother from another mother. Great guy, smart guy, crazy smart guy. And I want him to do me a favor. Tell me what you think of this. Here's what I already know before I send it to him. He's going to tell me this book's either going to suck, you're wasting your time, and if he did, I was wasting my time. I would have stopped. Or he's going to say, it's pretty good. And I would have kept going, and he'd give me some liner notes on it, like blah, 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 blah. He's one of those friends that is so honest with you, and that's what a friend should do. They should tell you those things. And he did. I get a note back from him, and he goes, I think this is going to be a bestseller. You need to keep working on this. This is a really valuable subject matter. And so I was pretty happy about that. And strangely enough, in the back of my head, I thought, I think this book's going to do pretty good. I've never really heard of one like this. Now, let me go back into the meantime. Another guy, he's a professor I know. I don't want to dox him or out him. He's an accounting professor, and he is an absolute rock star at the school he works at. He suggests, you know what you should do? You should go into Facebook. And I'm not a big Facebook user. All I do is to track my family. Pretty much that's about it. You should join these parents groups. And I don't even know what parents groups are, but they're really big. You know, graduates of 2024, parents of kids who are going to graduate in 26. There's one that's just moms and dads. 7,000 moms and dads. So I get invited to that group and I start putting snippets of what I think are really good ideas in college. In the meantime, I post my book's first cover, kind of a coming soon thing. And it says, how to avoid fucking up in college. I get this overwhelming response, and I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know. It is so incredibly positive. I can't even tell you how positive. I will buy that book the second it comes out. Blah 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 blah. I'm like, this is fantastic. Then, in the meantime, I call my older brother, and I always want his advice. And so I call him and I say, hey, what do you think of the title? Now, I have three brothers and we're all different from each other. He does not use profane language like I do in my real life. I don't use it in the classroom, but I'm not going to, once again, I'm going to be honest with you. I say that. And he takes a very analytical tack and he goes, look, I see where you're coming from. That word, and he's really helpful because a book had just come out, a runaway bestseller, and I don't even know how this happened. It was called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And a lot of authors jumped on that train. And I had heard of the book, but I wasn't really jumping on a train. But he kind of broke it down and goes, hey, it could be problematic. Well, it turns out it was problematic, but it wasn't for the parents at all. That's not what happened. It was problematic promoting the book. And the reason is because it had the F word in it. So the second you end up publishing something on Amazon, the first thing it asks you is, hey, you want to spend money with us and promote your book? And my answer was, yes. Yes, I do. I'd be glad to do that because your analytics are going to show me if I spend $500 on promotion, but I sell $600 worth of books, it's worth it. I'll do it. Yay. So I put my book in there and it says how to avoid fucking up in college. And all of a sudden it goes, sorry. What do you mean, sorry? You're the one that asked me if I want to promote this book. You published this book. Sorry, you can't use the F word. Fine. Here's what's going to happen. I will put how to avoid effing up in college. Nope. Can't do that. Okay, I will put how to avoid, and then I type in F asterisk ampersand exclamation point KING. Nope. So it won't let me do it. It won't let me do it on Instagram either. It won't let me do it on Facebook. So now I'm sitting there with a book that hundreds of parents have told me they're going to buy when it comes out, but I can't promote it. That's a problem. So in my pea brain, here's what I do. I decide, okay, I'll change the title. And I think I called it How to Avoid Screwing Up in College or something like that. And then I go back to the parents groups, thousands of parents in these Facebook groups, and I post the new title. As overwhelming as the first response was, the next one was even more overwhelming. No, I will not buy your book. No, at all. Change it back. Change it back to how to avoid fucking up in college, or I'm not buying it. It has no impact to my kid without saying that. It has no impact to me. And it was like 100% overwhelming. Like, oh, shit. So I decide, okay, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I don't know how if someone knows, tell me. I don't know how the guy that wrote the subtle art of not giving a fuck became such a runaway bestseller. Maybe he was first to market. But I go, okay, I'll stick to my guns. I'll do this, and I'll redesign the cover. So I redesigned the cover, and if you look, you can see there is an absolutely beautiful, striking picture of a young woman. Now, where did I get it? What happens to get something like that for especially someone like me? Like, I'm not a photographer. I'm going to go look on the internets, and you go to these royalty-free sites, and a lot of them are like, yeah, this is royalty-free. Go ahead and use it, but I don't want you using it for commercial. So I'm looking and looking and looking, and I put in, okay, find me a crying boy. Find a bunch. Don't like them. It's not that I didn't like them, just they weren't what I'm looking for. So I end up, find me a crying young woman. Can't find it, can't find it, can't find it. And then this comes up. And instantly I was like, that's it. That's the one right there. Boom. And so what happens is I downloaded the high-vis version, and there's a way to pay the artist who took the photograph. And so I sent her money and gave her a note like, this is a striking photograph. Now, I went in and, for instance, if you look to where this yellow is right here, I matched that to these golden tears right there. And I did some of that in Photoshop to make it all fit, and that was great. Went back to the parents groups and said, okay, you know what? You're right. I'm not going to go against the crowd. Thank you for paying attention. Thank you for your advice, even though I will not ever be able to promote this book. And yeah, part of this podcast is going to be promoting this book. I want it to do well. I want it to go national. I do. You want me to lie to you about that? I'm not gonna. All these parents are like, wow, you changed it back. That is fantastic. I will now purchase that book. I had people in my own community coming up to me like grandmas. I bought your book. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It is awesome. I bought 5 of them. You bought 5 of my books? Yeah, I got 5 grandkids. I'm giving them my grandkids for Christmas. Stocking stuffers. Like, God, thank you so much. And so the original people that bought it were like parents, and then students started to buy it. And it almost became kind of embarrassing. I would have students come up to me the first day of class. Can you autograph my book? I'm like, golly, that's fantastic. However, here's what happens. So this photograph goes on Facebook, and literally every comment I get is positive. Every one I get is positive, except for one person. And this one person goes, so why'd you use an African-American young lady as a cover? What are you trying to suggest? Are you trying to suggest that African-Americans can't excel in college? I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, you have an African-American on your cover. So I'm like, okay, let me clarify some things for you. The first thing I was looking for was an absolutely striking photograph, which is what I got. And I was very, very pleased with that. That's what I ended up with. Second of all, I don't know what you're talking about. And by the way, just so you know, and just so you're saying, I have had a cornucopia of students my entire career. My entire career. So what would you have liked me to do? Do you want me to put a Caucasian woman on the cover? Because if I do that, by your logic, what you're saying is I'm suggesting that women can't do well in college. Do you want to lead me down this primrose path? Do you want to lead me to the spot where, you know what you got to do? You got to put a Caucasian kid on the cover, a boy. But still, by your logic, are you now accusing me of saying that this person can excel? Or just take me at face value and go, I picked the most striking photograph I've found. This is the greatest cover I've ever seen. Now, I could have gone this route first, but I didn't really care to. I didn't, at a certain point, I felt like I was talking to someone who was absolutely indoctrinated in media. Like, look, I've had 80,000 students throughout my career. This isn't what you think is happening. I just picked a really striking photograph. But push comes to shove. That's not an African American young lady on my cover. She's from Ghana. And the person that took the photograph, it's a woman of color in France. However, I don't want to validate myself. I don't even want to be in this argument. I just want you to take me at face value. And I want you to look back at my 21 years and go, does this guy seem like a racist to you? And maybe, who knows? I'm not. So I couldn't believe what a stink that cost. That was unbelievable to me. And I was just literally, fuck this. And then I thought, that's one person. That's one person's opinion. Hey, maybe that's what you think. You get to think what you want to think. All I can do is tell you, nope, I'm not a racist. And no, that's not why I put her on the cover. I put her on the cover because it's beautiful, it's striking. That's why. But it brings me to this. If one person can make that kind of stink throughout hundreds and hundreds of parents, and by the way, so this is posted publicly, and I can't tell you how many parents blew back on this person like, what the fuck are you talking about? Do you even know this guy? No, it was as angry as I was. Parents were way angrier. Are you kidding me? This is just a cover of a book. I suppose I can have no one on the cover. But to me, every now and then, as a university professor, it brings into, gosh, I wish I was more eloquent. I could say this a little bit better, but it brings to light how easy that is because of the nature of what I do. I'm a one-year contractor to the university. You don't have to fire me. You just simply don't renew my contract at the end of my contract. It runs from August to May, and you don't renew. So saying anything that is remotely, I don't know, against the grain of society or whatever it is, like, I'm not going to say it. Just so you know, though, I teach computer information systems to first semester freshmen. Politics doesn't come up in my class, but let's say it did. I'm not interested. I'm not a political person. I'm not going to talk about my politics, even if I can do that and sit there and go, oh, I'm fine. I'm not going to get in trouble for this. I wouldn't be saying anything anyway. However, that's one of the scary things about this. Now, I've seen other podcasts like this guy, Scott Galloway. Kind of like him, kind of don't. Says a lot of stuff. It's because he can. And I can't. When you're tenured, you can say whatever the hell you want to say, and you can do whatever the hell you want to do. So this is why, like, if you're watching the news and you're wondering why tons of professors like me don't say anything, because you're scared to make a mistake. You're scared to say something that is going to be, oh, well, you're done, and you'll never hear from me again. It's not like there's going to be some sort of let's get a bunch of signatures to get McCarthy back. And the other scary part is this is not like Pittsburgh or Philadelphia where there's 15, 20 universities that you've heard of, and maybe I can get another job. So I have to be very, very careful of anything I say. I feel like I'm pushing the limit as it is now. I know that some administrators had asked, hey, did you hear that he wrote this book? And I've had other administrators that heard that question go, yeah, I did. I bought a couple copies for my niece and nephew. So do I wish I wasn't as measured with my words? Kind of a little bit. Like I said in a couple of podcasts before, I want the ability to be wrong or say something stupid now and then. I really do. So that's my reason, at least. That's why I can't really say what I want to say. Ask me your questions, though. I told you, I'm going to be honest in this podcast. There's no reason to do this unless I'm going to be honest. Other than that, boys and girls, have a great weekend.